All right, JoshCast. Let's do this. Let's have this discussion. And by discussion, I mean one-sided conversation, because I'm a control freak, and it's easier for me to do a podcast that is one of a million other podcasts, probably a billion other podcasts at this point. It's easier for me to do that than it is to make a friend. Okay. Star Wars, Last Jedi. Pretty sure I've discussed this in podcasts before, but I think it's important that I bring this up again. There's a scene in The Last Jedi where a spaceship flies over another spaceship in space and drops bombs onto that ship. Couple of problems there if you're into the whole laws of physics thing. You can't drop something in space. Things don't drop in space. Space is not just your backyard, but darker. And it finally dawned on me, this is what bothers me about the Star Wars universe. And I'm not the first person to say this. Actually, it was my middle school theater teacher who pointed this out. In the Star Wars universe, in that galaxy far, far away, whether you're in space or you're on a planet, the laws of physics work as if you're fighting a World War II battle. That's it. That's the only way that people can fight in the Star Wars universe. And that somehow, even though you're in the middle of deep space, and even though by all rights ships should not function the way they function, if you're a big ship in space, it's going to be like you're a frigate on the ocean. And that's how things are going to move. That's how people are going to fire at you. That's how you're going to fire at people. And that's what it is. But it's fantasy, Josh. It's not reality. It's not based on reality. It's fantasy. This is what I hate about fantasy, though. Like, at what point is that line drawn? Because, all right, well, if it's fantasy, why are they wearing helmets? If it's fantasy and the glass blows out, why does the atmosphere fly out of the ship? I mean, if it's fantasy, you could maybe as well just do what they did in Treasure Planet and have a spaceship look like a seafaring ship and have the deck exposed to space and really piss me off. Here's how Treasure Planet should have happened. They should have gotten onto the ship takes off, goes into space, and they all die because they have no atmosphere on their ship. I want scientific accuracy. It's not too much to ask. It is not too much to ask. I insist upon it. Now, if it's a tried and true fantasy, if it's Game of Thrones, and you know what? If it's Game of Thrones and it's a fantasy, fine. Let the dragon fly through space. I don't care. Let the dragon fly through space, towing a guy on a surfboard. Fine. It's fantasy. Why? Because they said the right magic words and it's okay now. Fantasy. That's fine. But Star Wars, aside from the Force, it seems like they're trying to make it a gritty, realistic situation. So if you gotta pick one, realism or not realism. I did some research, and as it turns out, they asked the director of the movie, hey, how bombs can't drop? And he said, well, they're magnetic. Okay, great, they're magnetic bombs. Great, magnetic bombs. Okay, magnetic bombs. Here's my question. If the bomb is magnetic, would it not be more attracted to the ship that it is in than the ship that they are trying to bomb? Because the ship that it is in is closer to it. The magnetic's not going to do it. Refuse the magnet. No, not going to do it. I'm not going to go there. Other thing that bothers me about that movie is the spaceship chase. The bad guy ship is chasing the good guy ship, and at any point, I believe the bad guy ship could have jumped to light speed, turned around, and the good guy ship would have run into them, but they didn't do it. And you know why? Because no one in the Star Wars universe knows the Picard maneuver. That's why. That right there is a reference that two people will get, and I bet you even those two people have had more sex than I've had. There we go. And The Last Jedi is very divisive. The fans are divided over The Last Jedi, and it's created all this rage on Twitter. And as a nerd, a card-carrying nerd, I should say. Definitely a card-carrying nerd. Here's my response to that. We all really should try harder to have sex. That's my response. You know what? I am the first to say I should be putting all of that energy into mating with another human being. That would be a better use of everyone's time than me nitpicking over the science of Star Wars. That's what we should be doing. That is exactly what we should be doing. But in a weird way, here's the thing. Here's the interesting thing. It could be argued, and I think it has been argued, that everything we do, whether it be, the jobs that the work and the comedians writing jokes and people podcasting, everything we do, the ultimate end game is to attract a mate for the sake of procreation. And I can't help but wonder if maybe the reason why I'm attracted to doing stand-up and why I'm attracted to podcasting is because I'm such a failure with women, and physically I am not really, in the Chris Hemsworth arena, that my genetics have calculated that the best possible chance of me getting laid is to have a podcast. I think I've just cracked science right here. I think this is it. My genetic code is saying, listen, you've seen him talk to women. That's not going to work. Clearly, he's not a superhero. He's not going to save a woman out of a burning building. The only hope that we can see, the only thing that my body can do that could possibly, maybe remotely attract another woman, a female nerd, is a podcast. That is my only choice. Do you understand? Do you understand how horrific that is? Back to The Last Jedi, though. It wasn't and the acting in it was quite good. No one did a bad job. All the acting was, I like all the new characters. I liked, all the acting. It was fun to see Luke again. It was just, it was the kind of how the plot turned. It was the twists and turns were weird. And the timing was weird on it. That's what bothered me about it. More so than anything, just that it's odd when a central part of the plan to save the day is to travel halfway across the galaxy to get a guy who's good at picking locks, come all the way back across the galaxy again to break onto the ship that's pursuing the other ship and shut down the shields and shut down the tracking system so the other ship can get away. My question is, if you are capable of traveling halfway across the galaxy to get the guy who can break the lock, why not just go halfway across the galaxy and never come back? And while you're going halfway across the galaxy, that's when you take Leia. Take Leia halfway across. Put Leia at the casino. Give her a night off. Give her a night to enjoy herself at the casino and look at the big horse bison things. That would have been my vote. That's what I would have suggested. But they didn't ask me, and I'm not a member of the crew. For years, I thought I wasn't as big of a nerd as other nerds. Because what I would say to myself is, well, Josh, I know that it's just fiction. So I know that it's just fiction, and I can let these things go. And as I proceeded to not have sex for a longer period of time, I found myself suddenly really invested in finding all this stuff really important. And then, the one time I did have sex, the day after, I happened to be talking to a friend about the X-Men franchise, and I found while I was talking to my friend about the X-Men franchise that I didn't care about any of it because I had just had sex. And my mind was, what's the word I'm looking for? Clear. And I was a man, and it was quite delightful. But so that just goes to show that the fact that I am again discussing The Last Jedi, which I know I've discussed in previous podcasts. The fact that I'm discussing it again, that's how frustrated I am.